Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Bitcoin. It is time for another update, and today we'll be discussing the latest development. Since the previous video we had quite some interesting price action going on, as well as the relevant support and resistance levels to watch out for our preferred interpretations, also the overall preferred scenario for this larger structure. But before we get here, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And here there isn't too much focus on the initial structure to the upside. I am more interested in this latest developments, ever since the 2018 low is what I'm most interested in, and what I'm tracking what happened before is basically a series of 1-2 setups. Now from this current low we actually have a couple of options, so I could consider this to be a 1, 2, 3, 4th and a 5th wave to the upside that could form a larger wave 1, but realistically I need to consider that this could be in of itself a series of 1-2 setups, and that would be something to consider, especially if we don't push too deep here within a larger retracement, because in the idea of this being a larger wave 1 and having a wave 2 correction, we would expect a decently sizable push within the wave 2. Now I'm not necessarily considering a top within the wave 1, or within this structure. I am actually still tracking the possibility of moving higher, but if I were to already consider a top in place, the first level of support for the wave 2 would be the 31k level at the 38.2% retracement, whereas if we actually consider this to be just a series of 1-2 setups, the first level of support would heavily shift higher to the 57k level, still at the 38.2% retracement. But this would be a 1-2 setup in this scenario. Now clearly those areas do have some overlap, but right now we don't necessarily need to focus, because internally within this structure to the upside, again, we still have the possibility for extension higher. And at this point I am tracking this as an impulse overall, but within this 5th wave to the upside I am tracking an ending diagonal structure, and I have the possibility of tracking it as a 1, 2, 3, 4th and a 5th wave complete. We could have already a top in place and be in a larger bear cycle that would begin, or that would have already begun. But I could also consider here what we are tracking in white internally as an extension higher, where this would have been a 1-2, then an extended wave 3, a 4th wave down, and a 5th wave to the upside. Now this remains a valid interpretation here as long as we hold the area of support for the wave 4 between the 100.2k, actually the 102k level, around that area, all the way down to the 73k level at the 61.8% retracement. And within this pattern we do actually heavily prefer that we get another low. This has actually been a preference ever since we have formed the current local low within this correction to the downside. And the preferred interpretation is the one where we have here an A-B movement and a C wave expected to form to the downside. And I believe I actually even mentioned in the MicroStrategy video that we were expecting quite significant further continuation lower to the downside when we were into this larger retracement in wave B. We might have actually completed it, but we had not yet formed an additional low. But this was a specific preference to actually extend lower within this pattern ever since we formed here this initial 5-wave move to the downside. So this is really no surprise for us. We have been tracking here a wave C to develop, and within this wave C we only really need to form a 5th wave to consider the pattern, the count, full, and to not really be looking intentionally for additional lows. Now I'm not saying it is impossible to have already bottomed. It is, the market can basically always do whatever it wants, but we have been talking a lot about divergences here on this channel, and we just don't have one yet here on any time frame basically. We have not yet formed a divergence here on the RSI, and I have even provided you this interesting signal I have seen thrown around for this entire cycle of the RSI on the daily being broken below, or headed into oversold territory, being a signal that a local low, a bottom, may be forming in the near term within that area. And this basically has happened on multiple occasions here. We have seen these breaks into the oversold territory that have formed more significant lows. Now they didn't always push into those levels before continuing in an uptrend, but right now we have also gotten into this oversold territory, and it is an interesting area to be looking for a position, even if not for a push into new all-time highs, maybe at least for a more significant relief rally. Although once again, we should be prepared for a divergence to occur before we actually form a local low on the price chart. Yeah, we have actually seen this occur a couple of times. So here initially we have formed this low, we have had the lowest point on the RSI, and then we formed a higher low on the RSI while we formed a lower low on the price chart, and something extremely similar is expected to form within this area, within the current price action. Now, in this structure within the wave 4, we have managed to push here decently high. We have pushed past the 50% retracement, although we have already gotten rejected multiple times at this level. And not only that, we have formed here a higher high, while also forming afterwards a 5-wave move to the downside, which is suggestive actually of continuation in this downtrend. Now, the thing is, I am able to consider this a larger ABC movement, but yeah, there is, again, from a larger time frame perspective, there is also a preference that we actually push lower. It is a preference that we form here a larger ABC within the 50 to the downside. We are tracking an ending diagonal within this wave Z in the end. And I have still a bullish interpretation, basically a scenario that allows a more direct breakout, but it is not a high probability interpretation. And even though here we had in the previous video a potential 1-2 setup for continuation higher within this structure, we didn't follow through quite as expected. Yeah, we did manage to form here a low within the area of support and push higher, but only within a 3-wave structure, which could easily be as part of a larger ABC movement that would also explain why we have here a 5-wave move to the downside while allowing us to extend higher. So in the yellow scenario, while we didn't completely break here internally this area of support for a 1-2, we did push way below the 78.6% retracement, and the probabilities of this holding out have decreased too much for me to consider this as a main interpretation. Yeah, we would have needed to break here below the beginning of the wave 1, around the 84k level, for a complete invalidation of this 1-2 setup, but still, this is not a high probability interpretation for me, where right now, even if I am to consider a bullish scenario, I would actually be looking for this to be developing within a diagonal structure, even in a bullish interpretation. Yes, this could form just a larger ABC. It doesn't need to be a 5-wave move to the upside, but I would be tracking this slightly different area of support in this case for this entire wave 1 being an ABC structure in of itself. And in such a scenario, I would be watching here the levels of support between the 88.7k all the way down to the 83.3, basically 83.4k level, where a break below the 78.6% retracement would be a pretty decent signal to me that this structure is likely not going to hold and that we should expect this 5th wave to unfold to the downside. Now, in the white scenario, I am tracking actually here a top within the wave 4 at the current local high. Yeah, we might need to track a quite ugly structure, to be honest, something like WXY probably, and then in the 5th wave to the downside, I am expecting now an A wave to be complete. I would be tracking a wave B and then a C wave that would complete this larger pattern that we are tracking in the white scenario. And in such a case, I have here an internal area of resistance for this wave B at the levels between the 88.2k all the way up to the 92.3k level, where a break above the 78.6% retracement would be a signal that, yeah, something in the idea of the yellow scenario could work out. Again, this could be the yellow scenario itself forming a larger ABC structure within a wave 3, but also could be just a wave C to the upside, which, yeah, is still in the same idea of the yellow scenario and has the same area of support, which is why we are not also having a separate scenario just for the idea. Now, in this case, we can already see how we are reacting with those levels of resistance as well. Yeah, here the support levels have previously provided reactions here, especially the 61.8% retracement provided some interesting reactions, but also here the resistance levels at the 38.2% retracement, for example, we have been trending and consolidating within this area for a while having only a week basically into the 50% retracement. Now, the structure that we have here to the upside could maybe even be considered an internal 5-wave move, and we could be tracking here a possible internal 1-2 setup within this area, where in that case we can watch here even an internal area of support in yellow at the levels between the 87.4k all the way down to the 85.5k level. Now this is still on too small of a time frame to be looking for a highly reliable trade setup, and again, from a smaller time frame perspective, from this time frame, I actually probably prefer the yellow scenario, but from a large time frame perspective, I have to say there is no room for preference for anything than the white interpretation, in my opinion. This is winning over most scenarios. Maybe we could consider this a large 5-way move to the downside to be unfolding, where the interpretation would actually still expect another low, but within a slightly different structure. And yeah, it's just that in the small time frame we don't have a high probability interpretation to be looking for a direct breakout, while on a larger time frame we have here the potential initial 5-way move to the downside that would actually require and highly prefer another 5-way move to the downside. Yeah, and for now there isn't really much else to add. I will get here into the shorter time frame just to show here the details once more, at least on the screen. But for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days, weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.